You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where we're going to be talking about day one of the second test between England and South Africa at Old Trafford. It was a day which belonged to England as they fought back well. The old soldiers, Broad and Anderson, doing the heavy lifting. I'm Jack Hope, I'll be talking about it. I'm joined by Max Rowe Brown, he'll be talking about it too. How are you, Max?
Hello. Yeah, I'm good. Nice to see that England and Bazball are back, and rumours of its demise were, well,
Wrong.
premature.
Yeah, they're wrong. You're all wrong, people out there. Dean Elgar, you're wrong. Max, I don't know if you saw this. I wanted to talk about this earlier in the week, but I forgot.
Right.
Magnus Carlsen has been tweeting about cricket, and the most literal tweet.
In the most Magnus Carlsen way.
Yeah. 4 reasons why chess isn't cricket. Cricket is played on a field with humans. Chess is played on a board with wooden pieces. Cricket has a bat and ball. Chess usually doesn't. There are only 22 players needed for a cricket match, while chess is only 2. And fourth, I can't play cricket. What did you make of that when you saw the news?
I assumed it was dry wit and humour. Yeah, particularly with the final comment about Magnus Carlsen not being able to play cricket. I feel like it was. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say it's not like a weird missing the point thing. I'm going to say it was hilarious humour and sarcasm.
Okay. We'll debate hilarious.
Just shut the window because someone's dragging a bin outside.
Cool, that's fine. While you're doing that, I'm going to pose you a second question. Which individual of a cerebral nature do you think would make the best cricketer? So Magnus Carlsen, he's ruled himself out. He can't play cricket. Right. But, which brain box out there? You can't use Ed Smith, obviously.
Okay. Yeah.
So have you got anyone?
Mike Brearley.
No one who's played cricket. I mean, any nominations, preferably from like an obscure nation, to make this unnecessarily harder.
I don't have a great list in my brain of really well-known smart people from obscure nations. I have to say. So I'm just going to go with Brian Cox. I reckon Brian Cox has got all the angles sorted out. That's why he'd be good. He'd know exactly how to penetrate the infield.
I can see that working. Brian Cox, good answer. A few messages for the listeners. We are on the Twitter, the Instagram, the TikTok. Max, you did a TikTok this morning. Some iteration of the Cricket Podcast at the Cricket Pod will usually get you there. If you're watching on YouTube or you're listening, hit like on whatever device you're doing. Normally that's a heart-shaped thing. Hit that. Sometimes it's a thumbs up. That's also good. And hit subscribe. Keep us growing. It's all about perpetual growth. We don't want to have stagflation on the podcast, do we? No. We want.
No.
We want the other one.
We need to increase everything by at least 13% to keep track of.
That is true. Yeah.
State of the world.
Yeah. We're basically doing this for free because of inflation. So get involved. And you can there's 2 other things you can do to support the podcast. First, patreon.com/the Cricket Pod. That's if you want to get involved with us directly. We have a Patreon exclusive show out as of yesterday. Talking with Nick Brooks, who helped do our Asia preview yesterday, on the whole history of Sri Lankan cricket, Ranatunga and all sorts. That was great fun. You can get that if you're a Patreon by following the link in the show notes. And the show is presented by Manscaped. I'm going to keep it brief on this occasion. They're very good tools for testicle shaving, trimming, not shaving off, shaving the hair off the testicle sac, and care in general. Ball deodorant, spray,
comfort,
spritz, that sort of thing. Use the code CricketPod for 20% off at manscaped.com. CricketPod is the code that you need to remember. Max, can you summarise the cricket, please? We've spent quite a long time already on this show talking about Magnus Carlsen and balls.
We have. We'll talk about some more balls shortly, but red ones that swing through the air. But when I woke up this morning, all I could see was grey and rain. So I feared for what was happening up north in Old Trafford. But fortunately for us, it was dry there. So we got to see some cricket. And Well, it all went well for England. England bouncing, roaring back. Ollie Robinson back in for Ollie Potts. Weirdly given the new ball, which we found a bit strange. But it all worked out in the end because Jimmy Anderson did the business at one end, and Stuart Broad, after the first change, came and did the business at the other. Regular wickets all the way through the day. South Africa with a bit of a rear guard once again because England went into weird bowling mode, but only saw them get to 151 all out, and England were looking pretty well set. But we also forgot that England had to bat and do that bit, and they're not very good at that. So they were very quickly reduced to 43 for 3. And when Joe Root had gone, we were like, oh no, here we go again. But Johnny Bairstow, one of the two Bazball men in the Bazball.
Yep.
Well, the Bazball theory, which
just
is
call them batters.
Joe Root or Johnny. Yeah,
you have to call them Bazball men. Batters, I think is the word. One of the two batters England have.
Could do, but the theory is that in this new modern form of England cricket is that we just get one of them to score a ridiculous number of runs, don't we? And Johnny Bairstow did a reasonable job, and before you knew it, England had almost hauled in South Africa's score, despite looking like they were in a spot of bother early on. But it's sort of the mark of how England are playing cricket at the moment, that you sort of turn your head away for a few minutes and you come back and suddenly they've almost caught up, albeit it was only 150, so it wasn't a long way to go. But yeah, so I'm done. Carry on. Oh, you want me to keep going? Oh, okay, you need to keep going. Well, Johnny Bairstow, like I said, he caught England up, but also a little bit of help from South Africa's bowlers. As good as Nortje was in removing Ollie Pope and looking basically just too fast for everyone, he also contributed to England's total with a number of wides / byes, with the ball bouncing wildly over Verena's head. That helped, and then bringing on the spin, Maharaj bowled 6 overs, as many as Nortje, which perplexed me, Jack, because Nortje looked literally unplayable, even though he was quite expensive during the spell that he had. It also looked like none of England's batters could face him.
Yeah, thank you, Max. Someone knocked on our door. You might have been able to hear the doorbell. And then the door was being answered, and I thought that you would probably rather listen to, I'm talking about listeners here, would rather listen to Max waffle on about Nortje and, balls. Kyle Verreynne not getting to balls.
Yep.
And then someone answering a door. Where do we want to start with all of this? Broaderson? You know, Max, this would have been their 200th innings opening the bowling together. And what did Ben Stokes do? He brought in Ollie Robinson, of all people, and opened the bowling with him.
Let's start there. Why don't we start there?
But Broad had the last laugh, didn't he, Max?
He certainly did. After Ollie Robinson thought it had a wicket, and it was cruelly given as a no ball.
Cruelly / accurately. I mean,
accurately. Yeah, it was just abiding by the rules of cricket, wasn't it? Mate, I'm going to say it was a bit of genius captaincy by Stuart Broad, and he's not Stuart Broad, Ben Stokes, and he's held back Stuart Broad to try and just add a spark of fire to him, like a mini version of dropping him and then bringing him back and him being unbelievable for a series. It was just being like, okay, actually, I'm going to deny you the new ball so that when you come back, you come and prove to me that you should be bowling with the new ball. And he removed the cockinator, didn't he, Dean Elgar?
Yeah,
with a classic Stuart Broad wicket, and particularly really good all day, wasn't he? He was on the spot, kept playing away at that outside off stump, really accurate, and thoroughly deserved the 3 wickets that he got.
Yeah, he was. I was happy to, from an England perspective, I was happy to see Robinson back in the side. They are much better. I know he only picked up the 1 wicket, but he bowled pretty well. And he bowled pretty well in a kind of rusty way. Like, there was the odd half volley thrown in there, a bit of leg side stuff. Bowled about 50,000 no balls. I'm pretty sure South Africa got half their runs because in no balls bowled by Ollie Robinson. But also, like, clearly does do something different to the other bowlers. From the point of view of opening the bowling, I did think it was strange that they went to Robinson, actually, and there was some a few people who are ITK who were like, oh, England have picked a bowling attack with three opening bowlers, and that's a mistake, and now Broad has to bowl first change. And I know, blah, 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 it doesn't really make any difference because Broad bowls well first change anyway. But I did wonder, from a strategy point of view, and this might be something that we just, there's a narrative thread we think about into the future. I wonder whether Robinson is actually better. In fact, I looked up the data. Robinson is actually better after the 15th over of the match. He is not a particularly exceptional new ball bowler. Averages 40 actually with the new ball for a guy who's mainly played in England. That's not awesome. I mean, he's mainly played in England against Rohit Sharma and KL Rahul, which might have something to do with this. But after the 15th over, his average goes from 40 down to about 23. Yeah. So if I were doing the game plan, he would be my first change bowler, and I'm pretty sure when we've talked about this before, these stats are reflected in first class cricket as well.
Yeah,
where he gets better.
When he first came to the side, and it was why we were saying why it was so exciting to have him in there. Aside from the fact that he averages like 20, which is insane,
that is exciting.
It is the fact that he is able to maintain a good average after the ball gets old and still do something, which is exactly what England have been missing for a number of years, especially with all the injuries.
Have you got anything new to say on Anderson and Broad? Vic in the chat noting that Anderson is 40, looking like the best.
Would have been nice if we'd seen a 40-year-old get a hat trick, wouldn't it? That would have been.
Oh, that would have been good.
That would have been awesome.
A hat trick. We'd do it. I don't know. This has been a nice thing to prepare. When was the last hat-trick by an England player? Was it Dominic Cork in 1995?
What, in a test match?
Yeah.
Can't be that long ago. Surely like a spinner's burgled one.
I don't
like Montana or something.
Does Moeen have one? I'm looking this up now. England hat-tricks in test cricket. I mean, this must come up. It's not particularly exciting googling stuff, is it, on the podcast?
Live,
well, this it's interesting. Hoggard has one. Stuart Broad. I mean, surely these aren't Test cricket. I was. We'll have to. Should have prepared it, Max. That's a lesson for us there.
Should have
prepared it. We're idiots.
We could do it TMS style. Anyone in the chat, if you know when England's last.
But I was right. Moeen Ali at the Oval, Dean Elgar of Nevada, and Morne Morkel was the last England player to take a hat-trick. July 2017.
Okay.
So there's some information for you that's not really relevant to this. And Anderson, good. That was the point. There was.
Yeah. I mean, Anderson bowled well in the first test. I think he was unlucky, but yeah, he got his rewards this time around, didn't he?
I've got a question for you, and nobody's really been able to provide the answer to this.
Sure, I will.
Why was it so hard to bat? A lot of the metrics, the brain boxes, CricViz, they were saying it's not really swinging, it's not really seaming. It was very blustery. I think that explained why bowlers on both sides were losing their run up a little bit. The wind. Why? Normally that actually makes for sort of reasonable batting conditions. Why do we see South Africa struggle badly and England struggle a little bit today?
It's a good question. England bowled well, first of all. I think we should probably make that point. It's like they got there, they pretty much on, and that always makes things harder. There was a bit of seam movement. I thought there were a few balls that Robinson in particular bowled, and Broad as well, actually, where they got a bit of lift off the seam, and a couple of balls that were pretty unplayable. I think arguably it's the fact that the odd one doing something was enough to get the wicket. And so often you see the ball past the bat, do a load past the bat, and you get unlucky, and you're like, oh my god, this is impossible to play. But you don't necessarily get the wickets, and maybe the good balls just got the wickets in this case. There was a few wickets that were thrown away. I mean, Aidan Markram's
Max, I'm going to have to stop you. I'm going to have to stop you. It's a good summary, but I've got to make a confession.
Yep.
I've read the data the wrong way round. This was actually the most
seamy, most swingy thing you've ever seen.
No. Not this. There wasn't that much swing, but of cricket matches this summer, or the Test matches this summer, this was the one with the most seam movement in the morning.
Right, well that's
so
why
there
I was
is your
hard to
answer,
back, because it seems around a lot, and that is the hardest kind of bowling to play when it moves off the seam. Should we just leave it there? Should we just say goodbye and leave it there? We've googled who took a hat trick. We've got it all wrong.
So
that makes a lot more sense, because I was like, I thought it seemed a bit. So that does make sense. Yeah. So it was, England bowled well. It seemed a bit, but then like back to where I was going on. There were a couple of pretty shoddy wickets when Aidan Markram's was a disaster. Stokes was laughing at that one. Palmer and Maharaj were two examples of missing a straight one. Obviously, you got a bowl straight, but they literally just missed straight balls. So, combination.
Yeah, Markram's an interesting one, just as a little digression. First 1,000 runs in Test cricket, averaged 55. That's on course for legendary status. Yeah. Second 1,000 runs in Test cricket, which he achieved today, averaged 25. He's basically gone from Zak Crawley to Zak Crawley, hasn't he?
Yeah.
In 2000.
So what's happened there? Has he been worked out?
Well, that's the theory, isn't it? The word on the street.
Did he start in New Zealand and then play a load of tests in India?
No, I think the word on the street is that he's got a little bit of a vulnerability to the ball when it comes back in, and has an LBW problem basically.
Yeah.
He had the LBW problem, and then what he decided to do was change his entire game, and that gave him an outside edge problem as well as an LBW problem. and so that is
sounds
why
a bit like best though.
Players do go through spells. It's a long spell, probably a spell where you want to go and do something else, to be honest. But players, that does happen. It is to a lesser extent. We saw Joe Root go through something similar, didn't we? When in the 2019 Ashes, he kept getting pinned LBW, then made some changes and it became worse overall. And then came out the other side. I don't know if Markram's on that trajectory, and obviously there's a white ball angle to Aidan Markram as well, very capable white ball player. But it's a shame for South Africa that they, I wouldn't say have missed out on a batting talent like Markram, but that they
haven't benefited to the extent that they thought they would.
It was a bit of a false dawn. Any time a player gets 1,000 runs with an average of 55, you're pretty happy, aren't you? If that turns out to be his entire career, then you end up being pretty sad. Eventually South Africa, they're bundled out for not that many. I don't get England bowling short again. I don't.
Rabada faced more balls than anyone.
I don't understand it at all. But Rabada can bat, man.
He's decent. He's alright. He's a decent bat.
But it's still you've got out the entire top order bowling a certain way, and then a couple of guys who, in comparison, can't bat, come in, and you're like, no, we're gonna knock his head off. Zak Crawley, talk to me. He's still there at the end of the day.
Very un Zak Crawley innings, wasn't it?
His slowest, the fewest number of runs he'd ever scored after 50 balls. He's what's he ended up on? 17?
17 or 77.
Yeah, it's been pretty tedious stuff. Now, Max, the way I've read this, I think it's one of those ones where actually Zak Crawley is pretty lucky to be there. I don't think that whatever he's doing here today is a blueprint for Zak Crawley in the future. And I think, if anything, it might actually be making him even worse. But the fact that he's still there kind of is a positive and maybe obfuscates that slightly. What I thought watching Zak Crawley bat was, Jesus Christ, he's actually terrible at cricket. At least when he occasionally, he unfurls the cover drive or plays that pull shot, you're like, that's a good shot. That is a world-class shot he's got there. When he doesn't do those things, then he's like Homer Simpson against Dedrick Tatum, isn't he? He's just taking punches. Have I read that wrong? Is this the future for Crawley to become like a crap Dom Sibley, or
it
what?
wasn't pretty, was it? Or if you want Don Sibley, just pick Dom Sibley. That's the thing. I mean, Zak Crawley's not in there to do that, is he? So I can't imagine it was a deliberate blueprint or anything like that, especially after what McCullum said earlier, last week about him not being there to be consistent. He's just there to do, mad things. So, yeah, I can't see it being sustainable. I can't see it being a thing. I think it was just probably one of those days where he was really out of sorts and maybe did decide that he was just going to try and be there and have another go tomorrow. And I think tomorrow he may well come out and just play the way we expect him to, which will be score 12 nice runs and edge to the slips.
I've just checked his sort of control percentage, which ESPN do. 79%, which isn't actually too bad. As a comparison, the guy at the other end who's looked a lot better, 71%, Johnny Bairstow. So maybe it's sort of somewhat in the eye of the beholder here, and that Zak Crawley is doing something better than I thought. So what's that? 2 in 10. I mean, he still could very well be out, I think. But maybe I've been too harsh on the young man, and this is some kind of blueprint for him. Max, is there anything on England's batting that you want to talk about? Because there are a couple of decisions that happened much earlier that I think we should discuss.
Not really. I think the only thing for me was that it does look a little bit like England need to invest in a bowling machine that can go faster than 85 miles an hour.
Yeah. Awesome bowlers that can go faster than 85 miles an hour.
Yeah. Practice against it. But yeah, I mean, Nortje was fierce.
Oh, he was immense.
A lot of fun to watch.
He wasn't immense, was he? He bowled really badly, actually.
Yeah.
When it all lines up, he
bowled one really good over.
Yeah,
and then was all over the place.
When it lines up, it is virtually unplayable. We were talking about this in the Discord, which you could join if you sign up as a Patreon, patreon.com/thecricketpod. Endless cricket chat. Imagine that.
Literally,
we were talking about why he feels so much faster than everyone else on the circuit. Like there are some other quick bowlers going around. Mark Wood can dial it up, can't he? Umar Malik in the IPL can bowl, pretty fast. But Nortje seems to have kind of the edge on both of them. And our hypothesis, Max, was that because he's tall, players can't eliminate a mode of dismissal. So if you've got somebody who's a little bit shorter, Wood, for example, you can almost play to take bowled out of the equation and react maybe to anything back of a length and try and drop your hands on it. Whereas with Nortje, because he's extracting so much bounce out of the pitch, you can't really hedge your bets that way.
You get forced back, don't you? And that's that's the classic short ball, full ball ploy, isn't it? Is to pin someone back on the crease. So if you're forever pinned on the crease because someone is coming at you at both height and pace, it makes it very difficult to negotiate when the ball is zeroing in at your stumps. Yeah, I mean, it's not just a height thing either. It's sort of his action. He actually delivers it from a height, whereas a lot of quick bowlers, particularly in the past, think of like guys like Shab Akhtar, etc., and Mark Wood, is another example, a bit slingy. So again, you don't get that kind of delivery point. And I think it's a similar thing to Ollie Robinson, but in an extreme case,
literally 15
miles
an hour
10 miles
faster.
an hour quicker. Yeah.
Like
Ollie Robinson is difficult to play because of that height, and then you add an extra 10 miles an hour into it, and it's I don't want to be there.
No, well, I don't think any of them wanted to be there. Max, the decision I was alluding to is it'll be one of the big talking points of this match, I suspect. It's Dean Elgar at the toss deciding to bat, and actually before the toss as well, deciding to play Simon Harmer instead of Marco Jansen. I thought Jansen was maybe their player of the match in the first test. Bat plus ball combined, 48 runs, 4 wickets for 43. That was good. I mean, that by any metric is really good. He comes out. England. So South Africa play 2 spinners. That means they have to basically, if they win the toss, they basically have to decide to bat first. The conditions aren't great. The pitch was pretty green. They had good sight of this. Twitter was showing photos of the pitch being green yesterday. I thought that was 2 bad decisions. Am I wrong?
I can't disagree with you, I'm afraid. As much as I'd like to stoke informed debate, I'm with you. It didn't make a lot of sense, especially when you saw the. I suppose they were thinking maybe we'll ride out the morning session with the bat and try and make hay when the sun comes out in the afternoon. But let's be honest, it's a very bold move to choose to bat against even even a 40-year-old James Anderson and co. when it's a bit green and it looks like it might do a bit. But yeah, I mean they were hamstrung, weren't they? It's a fair point to make. If you're going to pick two spinners, you're banking on them winning you the game at the end. And even India in England didn't pick two spinners. So
I think they did once, didn't they? And then ever since
they
then,
did it in the World
refused.
Test Championship final, lost, and we're like, we're never doing that again.
And I think they didn't
even
once
when we thought
before that maybe play Ashwin and Kuldeep at Lords or something like that.
Completely I'm sort of talking the last 2 years, I suppose, rather than So in recent times. They're doing that with like the best off spinner in the world being left out for Shardul Thakur, and for South Africa to do it with, obviously Simon Harmer's a brilliant spinner and very good in England, and Maharaj is a really good spinner, and between the two of them, they cover both spinning both directions and control because they're both finger spinners. But it's England, man.
Look, I completely didn't get it. The other thing that makes it not even worse, but say they did end up bowling fourth, and the pitch did completely fall apart, and they needed two spinners to try and win them the game. All of these circumstances are really highly unlikely when you consider both batting lineups are terrible. It's cloudy. It's a seamer. Like the idea that it's not gonna, we're not even gonna get there because of the weather. The weather's gonna be good. The idea that we're gonna get there seems really odd. But if they really did need someone to turn their arm over,
you can bowl Aidan Markram.
You can't Aidan Markram bowl. I mean, I know he hasn't got an amazing record in either Test cricket or first class cricket, but he can bowl off spin. So if it were a proper Bunsen, he can do something from an end.
He's probably like around a Joe Root level of bowling, right?
I think Root's better. But he's not awful.
But Markram bowls quite regularly in white ball stuff. So it's a strange one for me. I mean, why change it? Why change the winning formula so much?
We've got two questions in from VJ actually through two different channels, and then I'll ask you your thoughts on what you think will happen in the rest of the test. The first is a general point about Ben Stokes. It's not really a question so much as sort of what our thoughts on him as a player at the moment are. So I think there's a view, isn't there, that his batting is not dived off a cliff, but is a little bit strange, and his bowling actually been okay, but it has sometimes looked rather creaky. What do you think the prognosis is for Benny Stokes? Is he okay? What's happening with him?
It's every time he bowls, he looks like he's about to break, and then he just carries on, and he seems to be fine. I don't get it. He must have a really good ice bath or a really good physio, but I think it's a necessity thing, isn't it, with Ben Stokes with the ball? So I think as we move on, and hopefully some of England's bowlers regain fitness, we will probably see him bowl a bit less. And at the moment, he's basically doing it because he has to, and I mean, he's doing a good job. I'm quite enjoying seeing Ben Stokes bowling. So hopefully it doesn't destroy him. But the batting is weird, isn't it? Like it's a bit Pantheon.
It is. I've looked at it. I've just checked his average because I thought that it was better than it seemed. He's actually averaging 37 over the English summer. Now that's okay.
That's not bad
for
all.
A number 6.
Yeah.
The conditions potentially have been a bit easier than they have in previous years, and maybe a man of his talent should have cashed in a bit more. But I don't think that's hideously bad. And then with the ball in hand, he's averaging 30, which is sort of in the ballpark for his career. 32. Yeah. So maybe Ben Stokes is actually playing well. He's just playing sort of different. Is the answer to that? I think that possibly, if you were being critical, in the England's batting lineup with the fragility that it contains, having one of your technically best players
bat like that,
bat like a nutcase, isn't ideal. Like there are other guys that can do the nutcase stuff, and maybe Root and Stokes should be we're going to try and score. Every time we bat, we're going to aim to score 100 in 200 balls. Maybe not quite that extreme, but you get what I mean. Like build a bit more of an innings, unless you're feeling really good or bowling's particularly bad. But have that mindset rather than I'm going to
run you.
Yeah, I'm going to get 50 off 50
and take you out.
Yeah, it's I think it's the weirdness.
Fun to watch, though, isn't it?
It's the weirdness of the dismissals that has confused me a little bit with Stokes. But good question. And then VJ again, did Dean Elgar choose to bat just so he can see if his bowlers can withstand the Baz ball onslaught by England in the fourth innings? And we'll use this as a question that takes us on what we think will happen in the rest of the match. I think if England do this right, they might not even have to bat again. I think it's going to get a little bit easier. They probably got through the worst of it. Bairstow is ticking. They should be, a competent team here are thinking we're going to get 350. And South Africa are then in a real situation with a pretty fragile batting lineup. Doesn't go particularly deep. What do you think?
Yeah, they're in a really strong position, England. 111 for 3, 40 behind. Yeah, I think 350 is definitely what they should be aiming for. And again, with the sort of attack that South Africa have picked, you think, if the ball gets a bit old, they'll be, they can bring the spinners on, but they haven't, dare I say it, looked too threatening today, and it means they will have to bowl a lot because they can't rotate Ngidi, Nortje, and Rabada for the entire day, because it'll be a lot of work if England get on a bit of a roll. So they'll have to use them wisely. They'll have to use Nortje in bursts, which obviously they will do anyway. So England well set. I think that should be the aim. Win by innings should be the aim, but I dare say one early wicket in the morning.
But that is what
bring things back to a slightly closer edge. But even like a lead of 70 odd should be.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm driving at. I'm not actually saying that I think England are going to win by an innings here. What I'm saying is that a competent cricket team should be thinking 350 is what we want here, and then
they're probably thinking 500 by the close tomorrow.
Well, or that. I think probably what's more likely is that England get 250, and even that's too much for South Africa. I think on the preview for this show, we talked about how even though England were supremely crap at Lords, that they almost certainly would dish out a hiding to South Africa at one point, because South Africa are similarly crap with the bat. Yeah. And that's probably this Test match. They've got the worst of the conditions, probably the worst of the conditions of the game. England bowled well.
The whole series could be a story of teams batting first and getting rolled over.
Yeah, I think both teams are pretty heavily stacked with bowlers. I still think South Africa have got the better bowling attack, but the conditions played so nicely into England's hands this morning that effectively should be more or less neutralised. Google is saying that England have an 84% chance of winning and South Africa a 14% chance. I'd say that was probably ballpark. No, South Africa is entirely on the bell curve of possibilities, as I like to say. It is possible that England have rolled for 90 more runs and then South Africa get 250 themselves and win. But I don't
think about it. Like
I think that's it.
1 in 6, 14% basically. One in 6. If you ran this 6 times, I think a 1 win for South Africa probably makes about sense.
I would put it something like that as well. But it'll be
the Viz gets it right for once.
Is that what this is Google, and I think Google is a little bit more high powered than CricViz. CricViz is pretty bad.
Insane,
I'd say. Dan Weston wanted us to talk about Tuesday night. We were at the 100 max.
Yep.
So we'll pay lip service to that. The Phoenix smashed Oval Invincibles. It means that Oval are basically out. The Phoenix, according to maths, have got about a 60% chance, 65% chance. Maybe I think it was 68% chance of getting through. Max, as a Surrey man, an Oval man, were you sad? We'll get your emotions and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, it was a shame. It was close-ish, but I think for me the best thing that Sam Billings did all day was get out first ball, so he didn't waste too much time. Because I was a little confused about sort of the Oval Invincibles approach with the ball. We'd seen in it's a completely different game, but in the women's game before, what was it, like 70 balls of spin the Invincibles bowled and really tied the Phoenix up. They brought in Nathan Salter, who literally only bowls spin. Like he doesn't do anything else. That is literally his entire job, and he didn't get his full allocation. I think he bowled 10 balls, maybe 9 runs or something stupid. So there's another 10 balls out there that should have been used that definitely towards the sort of latter third of the Phoenix innings could have been used to try and tie things down, because the Pacers weren't really cutting it for Oval Invincibles, and that meant that Phoenix got too many on the board. And I think, it was they made a good go of it, didn't they, at the end with the Currans, but it was too much for them to haul in, and it was a well-deserved win for Phoenix. They played well.
Do you know what the problem is? There's 2 problems. One, Jason Roy's terrible now.
There is that.
And two, Tom Moody's the coach of Oval Invincibles, and he is
losing start. That, isn't it?
I would venture the worst coach that regularly gets gigs in franchise tournaments. Like, he's so bad. Like the way cricket his team's played, they're so poor. It's just out of date, basically. You can't bat like they batted, chasing effectively 10 and over from ball 1. They were like, no, we'll get 25 off the power play. Then have a look. It's like, now you need 14 and over, you bozo. Like, do something. You're the coach. Tell them to do something about this. But all of his teams play like this. There was, a fluke season basically with Sunrisers.
Best Warner opening,
Well,
I mean,
not even that. The year where they won it, and Rashid Khan was good, and Kane Williamson, who's maybe the least useful T20 batter in the world right now, had a freak season, and it's like, that method of cricket's going to work. No, it's not. No, it's not. You're wrong, and you're ruining the game.
Explain yourself.
You're ruining the game, Tom. So that's the end of the show. Here are some messages for you. We are the Cricket Podcast. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at the Cricket Pod. There's a bunch of people watching on YouTube. Hit like, get the profile of our channel up. Hit subscribe, get the number of people who watch the channel up. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/the Cricket Pod. That's in the show notes. There's a special show about Sri Lankan cricket out now for anyone who gives us £4 a month or more. And the show was presented by manscaped.com. Use the code CricketPod for 20% off there, plus free shipping.
Free shipping?
Yeah, that's good. All right, Max, we did longer than we expected, as usual.
Oh,